I'm going to talk about something very different from what I normally go into. That's chemical weapons. And this is a response to um, Sargon of Akkad had a live stream called Discussing Syria with the Hobbyist Contrarian. And Sargon kept arguing that chemical weapons were not effective. And I'm sort of surprised at this comment by him. So, am I an expert? No. Let me give you a little bit of my background about chemical weapons and such. So, first off, from sort of an interesting point of view, my uncle developed emphysema from exposure to chemical weapons in World War One. Okay. Interesting. My mother gassed herself with mustard gas. Yes. Okay. For those of you who don't know, my mother, I grew up out in the West, and my mother did her own canning. And as part of one of the things that she used to make, and one of the things I miss, was her mustard pickles. Now, this is an obscure thing that most of you have never heard of, never seen. I actually looked for them online, and they're difficult to find. Even on the internet, they're difficult to find. They do exist out there. But mustard pickles, you use mustard powder, you build a mustard sauce that you put over the cucumbers, and you produce a mustard pickle. The closest you'll see to mustard pickles is a mustard relish. That's ground up mustard, that's ground up, chopped up cucumbers in the pickle brine. Mustard pickles are a little bit different, and normally they have a little like pearl onions in them. But my mother let the pickles get too hot, because you have to make the sauce hot. Make the mustard sauce got too hot, and it vaporizes the mustard, which gets into the air, and she gassed herself and ended up with pneumonia. And she only had one lung because she had one of her lungs taken out because of chronic bronchitis. So those are things like that. So I know a little bit about that. I was in the service. I was in the Army, and I got involved with chemical agents from some interesting ways. I was dealing with, I was up at working in S3, that's operations, and was shared an office with a chemical NCO, and that I ended up eventually becoming a chemical NCO. But we had some interesting experiences. Chemical NCO is the guy who handles the tear gas when you go through basic training, and you're supposed to do it every so often. You go through basic training and teaching you with CS, that's tear gas. So what had happened was, when I was in the service, he happened to have a bottle of CS that ended up left over from some training, and he had a small little bottle that he set on his desk. And sort of as a joke, one of the things you always have when you're in the military, you always have a lighter. I won't go into the reasons why, but you always have a lighter. And so it was joking about CS, and so CS is activated by heat. So you hold the lighter under the jar. So we used to play chicken. Who could hold the jar of CS and wave your lighter underneath it the longest? And I remember we'd been doing this for one. We built up a little bit of a tolerance, and somebody walked into our office and nearly died. Just, what are you doing? Because it was like a tear gas chamber. And we'd built up an immunity to it. And then I went through chemical training. So, and I met some of the older chemical NCOs. Which was interesting, and you could tell an older chemical NCO because of the scars. What do I mean by that? Well, I don't have them, but I saw them. What happens is the military used to train you to handle blister agent, which is mustard gas. And what would happen is that you could pre-treat one spot on your arm. It had the little scars right, let's see, get them in the camera, right on the inside of your arm, right here. You'd have three little scars. What they would do, you had two little scars. So the first spot you could pre-treat. Then they'd put a drop of mustard gas on your skin, blister agent, and you could then post-treat it. That did not leave a scar. Then they would do the next one where they would put a drop on your skin and you could post-treat it. You could wipe it off and treat it, and that would actually leave a scar, a small, almost not visible, but a tiny little scar. And the third one, to pass the school, they put a drop and you couldn't treat it for, I guess it was an hour, I can't remember the details, and that would leave an obviously visible scar. So I've been around chemical things like that, and I was always interested in some of this stuff and so on. So one of the things that I've heard, and it actually was reported by the New York Times, I'm not going to put a link, you can go search it up if you're interested yourself, about the servicemen coming back from serving in the Iraq War that were actually going to the VA, and they had signs of exposure to chemical weapons. And the interesting argument, the conspiracy theory was, they said, oh, Saddam Hussein didn't have chemical weapons. Why were we so sure that he had chemical weapons? Well, we were sure because we sold them to him. That's the story I've been hearing, is that we sold him weapons, and he had American-made delivery systems that were loaded up with gas, and the explosive ordnance EOD or explosive ordnance disposal units got exposed to them when they had to destroy these munitions. So that's there. So Sargon made these comments. I know a little bit, and like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm there. I know a little bit about chemical weapons. But the interesting argument is, how effective are chemical weapons? This is where I disagree strongly with Sargon. He says, oh, it doesn't kill that many people. Well, what are you talking about? Who cares? It's not a matter of the number of people you are. It's how effective they are. So the example I have with it is, if for those of you who have ever read the story of Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu applied to the emperor to become his general, and the emperor said, you can train anyone, and he says, yes, I can do that. He says, I've got my 100 concubines here, train them to be soldiers. And Sun Tzu goes out and he gives them an order to come to attention, and they all laugh. And Sun Tzu explains, if the general gives the order and the troops don't understand, that's the general's fault. So he comes back and patiently explains what they're supposed to do and so on. And after explaining it, he gives the order, and all the concubines laugh. So he takes out a sword and cuts the head off of two of the concubines. And then he explains to the emperor, if after you've explained the order and they don't follow the order, now it's the troops' fault. And he says, so he executed two of them out of supposedly 100. And then he gives the order, and now they snap to attention and they march the right way. So his effectiveness, he killed two, but he got the rest to fall in line. So one of the most devastating weapons in World War II that the Germans created, you hear about the V2 and the V1, and that was what was called the Bouncing Betty. Bouncing Betty was a landmine. And the landmine I don't think there were any deaths from the Bouncing Betty. But the American troops were terrified of the Bouncing Betty. Because what would happen is you would step on the Bouncing Betty, which would set it off, and it would pop up to groin height and explode. It was designed to mutilate the genitals of those walking through the area. Now, most men, at the thought of walking through an area and something, the phrase is, have your balls blown off, Uh, pardon for the vulgarity, but that's sort of terrifying to most men. So the effectiveness, Sargon is going, oh, but it doesn't kill anybody. It wounds them and it puts the fear of going through those minefields. It's not how many you kill in battle. The goal of combat is not to kill the enemy. The goal in combat is to defeat the enemy. And if you read Sun Tzu or even read Clausewitz, you'll understand it's not the goal to go out and kill every one of your enemy. You probably don't even want to do that. What you want to do is you want to defeat them. You want them to give up, to be defeated. So sarin gas is a chemical agent. And now it's colorless. Now it's probably not odorless. That gets conflicting. But what happens is that you don't see it. And it's got a shelf life of something like that. That's the argument is, oh, why would Saddam Hussein do that and so on. That's a different discussion, but the argument is that sarin gas, once you manufacture it, it's got a limited shelf life. That's a problem with many of the chemical agents. Actually, that's a problem with nuclear bombs too, but they have a shelf life, but we're not talking about nukes right now. I'm talking about chemical agents. So they only are good because the chemicals break down after a period of time. So once you've manufactured it, you've got there. The second argument that Saddam Hussein is, yes, the rebels they captured all this equipment. Yeah, but there's the question of, can you load it? The chemical agents are, can you handle it safely, or do you just kill yourself when you deal with it? If you don't know what you're doing when you deal with chemical rounds, you could release the chemical rounds. I mean, for those of you who have the military bent, you may be seeing some of these stupid videos out there of people doing stupid things about the artillery. Supposedly, some of ISIS, what they would do is that I don't know if this is true or not, but some interesting videos out there that they had captured some artillery. They didn't know how to aim it, so that they would point it in the general direction, and then they would pray that it would go on target and then fire it. They didn't know how to aim it. They didn't know how to do it. There's a difference from being able to capture some equipment and being able to use it. So yes, they may have captured all this equipment and so on, but do you know how to use it so that you don't kill yourself? Do you know how to aim the weapons? Do you know how to properly handle the ordnance that has this, to launch the missiles? That's the difference between a mob and an army, is discipline. And an army has to be trained. And to use chemical weapons, you need to be trained. So the argument that, oh, these rebels who are untrained, they're a mob, let's be honest. They're not really trained how to deal with these chemical weapons. I have a real hard time saying anybody who is untrained could do it effectively. And what do I mean by effectively? Well, you put chemical agent into an area and you deny people going through there, because until the sarin, if that sarin is what they were used, it's going to be there for a couple of weeks until it breaks down. But it will break down. But even then, after it breaks down, if it's seeped into something, there's always the possibility that you go in there a month later and you pick up a rock or do something like that, and there's still just enough there to make it deadly. So that's the reason why you use sarin. That's the reason why you use chemical agents, is to make it deadly. I actually was amazed at it's like, what's the proper way to use nerve agents and so on. And actually the interesting thing is that the first thing you do, there's a philosophy to using chemical agents against troops, against civilians and things like that. You just want to terrify them. You want them to flee the area. If you know that there's something over there that's killing people, you want to flee the area. Look at a sniper. A sniper doesn't kill that many people, really, but they kill the people that effectively terrify the area. You don't want to go into an area where there's a sniper. The sniper may have only killed 1 or 2 people, but you know that if you're particularly a high value target, that they're going to try and take you out. And so what happens is that the snipers help deny people from going through areas. They make everybody jumpy. Chemical agents do the same thing. They make anybody living in that area, until you fully decontaminate that area, you can't eat, you can't drink, you can't handle bodily functions in that area. You want to be out of that area before you have to relieve yourself. You want to get out of there so that you don't get exposed. So it's an aerial denial weapon, not a weapon to kill. That's secondary. It denies the area. You want people out of there, and it's a terrifying weapon. It terrifies people. So the argument that, it's not very effective, I find a rather facetious argument, because that's not the purpose of the weapon. The weapon is to terrify people. And like I said, in the military, if you're going after troops that have chemical gear, that have gas masks and so on, the first thing you do, you don't use sarin gas first. This is what surprised me. The first thing you do is tear gas. You tear gas, because that will get the troops wearing the gas mask. Then the second thing you do, the second wave, is you run cyanide gas. Cyanide gas is also known as a blood agent, and all the chemical filters that people have in their gas masks can only withstand basically one cyanide attack, because they will filter it out, you will survive, but in the process it will destroy the filters. So you've got them wearing their masks so that the filters are active. Then that's with the tear gas. Then you have the cyanide gas, which destroys the filter. Then the third wave of chemicals is the nerve agent, which then, because now they have no protection, because you've got them, it's going to go right through their gas mask because the filters have been destroyed. That's what you do in a military situation. That's the military doctrine for how you attack soldiers who have been trained and who have the equipment. But that wasn't used in Syria. We're seeing it's used to terrify civilians, to get them to leave the area so that you can occupy it and so on. And sarin doesn't last that long. It doesn't have long-term effects. So I've ranted and raved a little bit about this one, because I just thought the argument that sarin is not an effective, it doesn't kill many people, is a stupid argument, because it's a terror weapon. It terrorizes people. Let's be honest. We take a look at 9/11. 3,000 people died in the World Trade Centers. But Manhattan has how many million people? What percentage of the population did what that attack do? What percent of the population did it kill? It was really not that effective in killing the population of the United States or destroying the population of the United States. But it was very effective in getting a response. And so what happens is this whole argument that it wasn't an effective weapon, it just bothered me. That's why I had to put this together and explain a little bit about this one. And this is a bit more serious, and I normally don't get into politics, but this is not about politics. This is about nerve agent. But I strongly disagree with Sargon of Akkad. I like his videos. He's a bright guy. He does some interesting stuff. I don't agree with him on many things, but this one was one I had to call out, because it's the argument that it's not effective at killing people. That's not even the issue. That's not why you would use chemical agents. And if you were going to use chemical agents to kill soldiers, that's not the way you would do it. You wouldn't launch these rockets into an area. First thing you'd launch is CS gas to get them to mask up, and then you would launch cyanide gas to destroy the filters, and then you would launch the nerve agent to destroy them, to kill them, or to affect them. But what happens is now you've prepared the way so that the gas is effective against them. And what happens is sarin is nasty stuff. That's why you get these awful videos about people who've been exposed to sarin and how bad it is. And what happens is that it's an effective terror weapon. And do I think Assad would do it? Well, you take a look at it. Who has the training to actually use these weapons? That's an important question. Because just because they have them, that doesn't mean they know how to use them. Because you can, I remember seeing, my mother grew up driving a stick shift, manual transmission. And she didn't understand an automatic transmission car. So there was a time when somebody gave her an automatic transmission car for a period of time, and she tried to drive it and couldn't. Now you go, what do you mean? It was just, my mother had difficulty transitioning. So I can just say that you go out and get in the car and but she was, where's the clutch? I'm used to, she couldn't understand how to do that. So those type of things are, if you don't know how to do it. Have you seen the videos of where they give a dial telephone to some young kids today? And they go, how do you call? How do you, we use the phrase dial a phone number. So you give these complex systems to someone who has no training, and you expect them to use that efficiently. Now, a rifle and a gun are fairly easy. They're fairly simple systems because you pick them up, you point them in the direction, and you fire them. But even that, if you don't know how to load them properly and how to clear a jam, you're not an effective soldier. So what happens is that I had to write to do this rant because chemical weapons are an effective terror weapon. They're not designed to kill mass numbers of people. They're designed to deny access to an area and to have people leave the area and avoid it for a period of time. That's the purpose. And as that filling that purpose, sarin is fairly nasty and fairly effective at that. So I think Sargon of Akkad needs to rethink his argument that, it didn't kill many people. Well, no, it didn't kill many people. But many things don't kill many people, but they can be terrifying. So thank you for watching my video. This is a little bit different rant for me. And I'd like to hear your comments.